There are some fish that are just icons in the aquarium world, and the Severum cichlid, it's definitely one of them. But what if I told you that almost everything you think you know about this fish is wrong? We're talking its name, what it eats, even how it raises its babies. It's all part of this huge, decades-long puzzle. And today, we're gonna solve it. I mean, you can totally see why people love them, right? It gets these awesome nicknames like the gentle giant or the poor man's discus. It basically promises you get all that big, majestic Amazonian vibe without, some of the super intense care that other fish demand. It's just a stunning, tough, and charismatic fish. But this is where that puzzle really kicks in. The fish you see in the store, the one you might even have in your tank, it's probably not the fish you think it is. For years, there's been this cloud of confusion, a huge case of mistaken identity, plus all these myths about its diet and breeding. It's time to set the record straight. Okay, so first things first, let's tackle this identity crisis. This is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle and the source of almost all the confusion out there. So, for decades, if you went to a fish store and bought a Severum, it was labeled Severus. Simple, right? Well, here's the kicker. Thanks to modern science, we now know that the real Severus is almost impossible to find in the hobby. It's super, super rare. So, what have we all been keeping all this time? All right, this chart really lays it all out for us. The fish that's everywhere, the one you've almost definitely seen, that's Herocephacius. And see that clear spot it has on its tail? That's key. Now look at the true Severus. It's super rare. And notice, no tail spot. Its body bars kind of merge together there instead. And then there's this third one, Liberifer, which is a whole other story we'll get to, famous for being a mouth brooder. So here's the big takeaway, the thing you absolutely need to remember. It all comes down to a simple visual check. Look at the tail. If your fish has a distinct spot, you've got the common Severum Herocephaciatus. No spot? Then you might, just might, be one of the lucky few with the real deal. Okay, so we've solved the who is it part of the puzzle. But now, what does it eat? And this is where things get really interesting, because the answer is probably not what you're thinking. I mean, just look at it. It's a big, confident-looking fish with a pretty decent-sized mouth. You'd be totally forgiven for thinking it's a predator, right? Chasing down smaller fish. But what if I told you it's actually more of a salad eater? Believe it or not, back home in the Amazon, when the forests flood, the Severum turns into what's called a seasonal frugivore, which means it eats fruit. I'm not kidding. It literally swims up into the flooded forests to munch on fruits, seeds, and flowers that drop into the water. It'll grab some insects too, but that aggressive predator vibe, totally not its style. And this is exactly why knowing this stuff matters for you as a fish keeper. If you feed them a diet that's too heavy on protein, you're setting them up for some nasty health issues like hole-in-the-head disease. So to keep them happy and healthy in your tank, you've got to mimic that natural diet. Think lots of veggie-based foods, spirulina flakes, blanched peas, zucchini, that's the good stuff for them. Okay, so we've cracked the case on their name and their diet. But there's one last big myth we need to bust, and it's all about how they raise their young. This one has been a point of confusion for a long, long time. So you've probably heard this before. Severums are mouth brooders. The idea is that the parents hold the eggs right in their mouths to protect them until they hatch. It's a really cool breeding strategy for sure. But the question is it actually true for the common Severum? Well, for the fish that most of us actually have in our tanks, the answer is a big nope. It's not a mouth brooder. And the reason for the myth? You guessed it, it's another case of mistaken identity. Remember that Liberifer we saw in the chart earlier? That's the one that's a true mouth brooder. Our common Severum? It does things differently. Here's how it really works. Both the common Herocephaciatus and the super rare Severus are what we call substrate spawners. This means they find a nice flat surface, a rock, a piece of driftwood, and they lay their eggs there. Then they guard them like crazy. Now, where the confusion probably came from is what happens after the eggs hatch. The parents will gently scoop the tiny fry into their mouths, but only to move them to a safe spot, like a little pit they've dug. So it looks like mouth brooding, but it's really just them being good parents and moving their kids to a safer neighborhood. So, we've busted the myths, we've solved the identity crisis. Now let's get down to the brass tacks. What does it really take to give one of these gentle giants a good home? Because it's definitely a commitment. Look, if you're even thinking about bringing a Severum home, you've got to understand this isn't like getting a goldfish. This is a long-haul pet. You're signing up for a big tank and a lot of years. You're basically becoming a caretaker for a little ambassador from the Amazon. And when I say big tank, I'm not kidding. For just one of these guys, you're looking at 200 liters. That's a 55-gallon tank as the absolute bare minimum. And that's not a suggestion, that's a requirement for the fish to be healthy. Want a pair or want to put it in a community? You better be thinking way bigger, like 300 or 400 liters. And this commitment lasts a long time. This isn't a fish that's with you for a year or two. With good care, a Severum can easily live for more than 10 years. Seriously, think about that. This fish could be with you longer than your current car, definitely longer than your phone. It really does become a long-term member of the family. And believe me, they'll use every single inch of that big tank. They start out small, but they grow into these impressive 25 centimeters. That's about 10-inch adults. They absolutely earn that giant nickname. And they need that space to really live, not just survive. So how do you make that big tank feel like home? Well, there's a really cool science-backed trick. You know that tea-colored water you see in some tanks? That comes from tannins, from things like driftwood or almond leaves. It's not just for looks. It actually mimics their natural black water home. And get this, studies show it can slash their stress and aggression by a whopping 40%. It's such an easy way to make them feel safe and secure. All of this, the size, the lifespan, the care, it all leads to our final, and honestly, maybe the most important point. Your responsibility as an owner of a fish like this doesn't stop at the glass of your aquarium. Here's the deal. Because these fish are so tough and get so big, if one gets released into the wild where it doesn't belong, it can become a huge problem, an invasive species. It can totally mess up the local ecosystem. So the number one golden rule is you never, ever, ever release your fish. If you can't care for it anymore, there are always good options. Your local fish store, an aquarium club, they can help you rehome it. So yeah, the Severum has been wrapped up in myths for a long, long time. But I think the truth is actually way more fascinating. This is a fish that demands a serious commitment of your space, your time, and your willingness to understand what it really needs. But if you're ready to give it that, what you get in return is just incredible. A long-lived, intelligent, and absolutely stunning companion that's a true piece of the Amazon right in your living room.